Hi, it's Colleen, the Preparedness Pro. I've got another great episode for you today, one that I suspect that you have never heard of. I have got Adele Bayless with us today. Let me tell you a little bit about Adele. She has some very unique talents. I had to search pretty hard to find somebody with this kind of expertise. She's a seasoned expert in high-rise management in fire and life safety and emergency planning. She's got over 30 years of experience across these diverse sectors. And she's currently an LA Fire Department certified high rise consultant. This is a rare distinction. It grants her authority to conduct high rise emergency system tests, certify evacuation drills, fire safety directors, conduct tenant and staff training, and she authors emergency plans and manuals. So, Adele, thank you for your unique expertise and a perspective that you're going to bring to us today. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I'm absolutely happy to be here. I'm always excited to talk about safety. Safety is not the sexiest of things right now, particularly, or anytime really, but we have to take it seriously. And I
Well,
loved when you reached out to me. So thank you very much.
we're going to bring sexy back to safety here today, okay?
Let's do
Uh,
it, girl.
so I'm curious, of all the things that you could grow up and be, what initially drew you to specialize in high rise and fire safety management?
Uh, Really interesting question because almost no one who goes into commercial property management intends to go into commercial property management. It's kind of
Really?
one of those things. Oh, people fall into it. It's the number of audiences I've been in front of, and I ask the question, how many of you plan to go into property management? One or two hands go up. It's one of the really hidden gems of our society. Facility and property managers, we make spaces work. That's what we do. Different kinds of spaces, office spaces, apartment spaces, hotel spaces, data center spaces, industrial spaces, almost everything. We got a little feedback. Okay. So almost everything is run by a professional, either facility manager or property manager. And what we do is we paint the walls and we pay the bills. And we make sure that the facility is safe for you. It's part of our credo. We have a standard of care with safety. We have to think about the public. We have to think about our tenants and our occupants. So when I started, I actually answered an ad, if you can believe it. Back in the day, I go back that far when ads used to be in the newspaper. You actually had to go and look it up, and then you had to send your resume or call and whatever. It's unbelievable. That's the way we used to get jobs for everybody out there. And I thought I was going to be a secretary. I'd been doing secretarial and facilities and filing. I worked with law firms. And so I thought it was the same thing. Turned out to be a property management office. She kind of said, "Do you know what we do?" And I'm like, "No." But I found out when one weekend we did some work for a tenant to improve their space, and I had no idea what this was about. But on Friday, the space looked one way, and on Monday, it looked another. And for someone who came from a legal background where it's mounds of paper, and I think a lot of workers feel that way, where what are we doing? It's like we're on a habit trail or something, right? We're going in circles. So I got to this place, and it was like, oh my God, we do something concrete. So that's really what drew me into property management. What drew me into fire safety within property management is because that was my duty of care. I had to find someone to train my staff and to train my occupants. And they were boring. I paid, a lot of money. I can't remember what it was at the time. This was over 15 years ago. But saw my tenants scrolling and reading and falling asleep or needing to go to meetings. And I realized the information that they were imparting was very important. So I said, oh, I can do this. And voila, here we are 15 years later.
There you are. And you're definitely not boring. That your personality does not allow for boring.
No, and that's that is my secret sauce, is me. It's not anything else other than the way I'm putting together and I think about things. Because we allow, in the world, we do allow kind of specialized experts to take over in a lot of areas, which we need. Nuclear scientists, you probably need to be, pretty good. And safety, you need to be good as well. We've let the security industry kind of take over that realm of safety. We equate it with crime. Life safety has an element. We address active shooters, we address crime. For instance, in California, we have a new workplace violence statute that every business needs to adhere to. So, but we've ceded that space. And I wanted managers to take the power back and to connect with their tenants, because this information is very important. And what I saw was the way I could get my tenants to buy into my program was to give them information about safety in all aspects of their life. So when I present, I'm telling you about this big piece of glass and steel behind me, but really what I'm doing is to try to get everybody into a safety mindset. That's what I call it. Get there. My first question, no matter what the training, when it's life safety, because I do give other trainings, it is, I want everybody who wants to live, and I thrust up my hand really high in the air, and inevitably I'm the only one, right? Nobody else gets this. I kind of come in hot, and I go, everybody get your hand up, because I know you want to live. And then I frame everything I say about wanting to live and the fact that no one but yourself is going to save you.
So would you say that's the most common misconception about high-rise safety that residents need to understand is it's not someone else helping them? They've got to take care of it themselves?
Absolutely. High rises. So in my office building, I had apartment buildings. And one of the things I had to do is I didn't have very many of them, so I was lucky in that sense. But you can carve out. From Los Angeles. Los Angeles, along with the city of New York, has some of the most forward-thinking ideas on life safety, mostly due to 9/11. And I use 9/11 as an example frequently in my trainings, because I want to tell people, I want to remind them what happened, how people didn't know what to do, and people weren't evacuating. And that's a common problem that I'd seen as a property manager. What happens is, and this really happens in apartment buildings, because if you think about it, an office building is very safe, extremely safe, because if we've got ovens or stoves, we've got special equipment, we take care of it, we test it every year, we test our power, we test our people, we train. That's what we do, mostly because office money, right? For me, why aren't we spending money on the residents in apartments? There was a large fire that happened here in Los Angeles about 12 years ago. It's called the Barrington Fire. And it was a watershed in residential fires for the LAFD. They had been ahead on the office, but what has quietly unacknowledged is that residential does not get the same amount of attention as the commercial does on the commercial side. Hotels have a different, so they're slightly different. I train them differently than I train apartments, than I train offices. But the basic idea is that every person needs to know what to do. That's number one. You have to know what to do. Once you know what to do, and what I remind people is, we get a lizard brain, right? I say we have lizard brains, and we need to do as what would happen, because what we see in apartments and in office buildings is we see what people like to call the false alarm thing, right? There's an alarm going off somewhere. You're watching your Netflix or cooking your linguine and your ramen, and you're like, what? That happens all the time, and you ignore it. Right. That is the mindset that gets people killed. And I have to and I talk to them about simple things, about fears. Your fear of fire. Everyone's afraid they're going to die in a fire. And I tell them very few people actually die in fires. And then I tell them about smoke and how dangerous smoke is, what they have to do when there's the presence of smoke. In what I found, particularly with apartment buildings, that I find just mind-boggling. There's so much technology that we have. This world is giving us so many tools, and we are not really focusing our brain power on using tools to save lives. There are so many ways that there could be new training delivered to residents that we as a society would take safety seriously, because people tend to want to think that it's only the 9/11s and the big earthquakes and the Malibu fires. And that hits such a small amount of people. But it is not that which kills people day in and day out. I am interested in how people can be safe, not thinking about it because they have their safety mindset. So water leaks, fires that can become larger, all of the electronics and computers that we use that are so dangerous, all of those things, the lithium batteries, can we talk about those exploding for no reason? What are you going to do? So there's all kinds of things nobody tells apartment building dwellers, do you have fire extinguishers? Because you think, oh, the building's going to take care of it. Well, are you going to jump outside of your apartment building in the middle of a fire to go get something? Get one of those fire blankets that and I wish I had it in front of me, but I have that. I have extinguishers, and I have that right near my stove. And I can take it when I'm outside on the grill. People don't think about the grill because they think it's cheesy if you have an extinguisher next to you while you're being cool on your grill. I think it's so much cooler to have a cool fire extinguisher or a blanket as you are cool, you're feeding all the people. And so that's really what I don't want people to think, that safety is this big thing that they have to, oh my God, I have to do all this stuff. No, you can do it within the confines of your daily life. You buy a little bit extra. You just kind of build it in. You have a go bag. These are things that apartment dwellers should have, house dwellers should have. If you're a house dweller with 2 floors, do you have a ladder, a safety ladder? I had one. But the other thing I want to tell people, because when I talk to people in my life, when I'm not like, hi, I'm Miss Safety Person, inevitably, if I start talking about it, they'll be like, oh my gosh, you do so much. It sounds so daunting. No, I don't. I am not. Trust me. I've got enough to get by. I don't have a safe room. Now, when I lived in a bigger house, I had supplies on every level. I had supplies on my basement. I had supplies on the main level. I had some supplies in the bedroom. I had go bags. What people don't think about, they think go bags, oh, if there's a fire, earthquake. No, what if, for instance, trains are talking near you? And what I mean by that is, what happens if there's some trains that collide or it overturns and it's got chemicals? They're going to relocate. They're going to evacuate a 2-mile square. So if you live within 2 square miles of railroad tracks, you should have a go bag just in case there's some kind of spill or something gets in the area and you have to be evacuated overnight to a shelter. So you want to, have your clothes, your medicine, your extra glasses. I always put in like sweats or stuff like that. And I'll put in like, the light blanket, your toothbrush. I put in a few snacks, hand wipes, a book. I constantly tell people, when you're packing for that kind of thing, put in a book of short stories, like Sherlock Holmes or something, so that it's short, but you may be sitting quite a bit. You may not have access to that Netflix. So those are the things I try to remind people. Games, bring a pack of cards, because likely you're going to be okay because you were smart enough to have that go book. You've evacuated. Now you're waiting. So you might not have electricity. So bring those things from the old times and spend some time with your family.
So let's switch gears here. Let's talk about apartment dwellers specifically. You've touched on a couple of things: go bags, ladder if you're from the windows that are on the second floor, and those are fairly easy to obtain and to install. What about? And then I love the idea of having a fire blanket nearby as well. I'm going to make that modification myself. That's smart. What are some of their approaches to emergency planning that should be different from those in single family homes?
Well, one thing is guess. Everybody's trying to make a little side hustle. They're doing Airbnb. They are maybe going away. They're getting somebody to house sit for them or something like that. And what we inevitably forget to do is to tell them little idiosyncrasies. Now, if you're in an apartment building, if you're in a house, you're like, you tell them, oh, blah, 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 blah. But if you're in an apartment building, you're putting someone into a situation where they don't know where your safe refuge area is. You should have a safe refuge area. If your building does not have one, or you don't know where it is, ask your manager. If your manager looks at you blankly, pick your own. 300 feet away from your building. And the purpose of that is if there is fire, we know that it's going to blow out glass, and that glass is going to go far. So we want to be about 300 feet. We never want to be directly under a burning building because other things happen than the fire. So you want to do that. You want to have a plan. How are you letting people know you're okay? I suggest when you go, if you're an apartment dweller and you go on a extended vacation or you have someone staying with you, you tell them these things and you show them where the exit is. Do not assume they're going to know, or they'll, hey, FOFA. Don't think that. Oh, they'll find it. There's signs. You know how many people, where do I go? People who have been in buildings for years and an alarm goes off or there's a real emergency and they're looking around going, how do I get out of here? Don't be those persons. Take your own safety into your own hands. That's why I also remind people.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Signs tend to be up. And people don't tend to look up when they're dealing with a fire or something of that nature. They tend to be focused down. Same thing if there was a mass shooting or something like that going on, people don't tend to look up. So seeing those exit signs, you've got to pay attention to that ahead of time rather than later.
Absolutely. And the way that I remind people of this is I say, okay, you get on the airplane and I know you don't listen. I try to listen every time, even though I've heard it. But what I do while they are talking is I figure out, okay, where am I? And I look and I count, oh, okay, here's my exit. It's right here. So then I can just have an idea. Okay, I'm really close. I'm far. When I'm in a movie theater, I look around because the new movie theaters, they have the stadium seating. Back in the day, sometimes you used to be able to have an exit behind the projection room. Some do and some don't. Look around. Where is your exits? Are they all in the front? Are they, front and then around that back thing, the way that they've designed theaters? So I always say there are evacuation signs. They're there for a reason. Take a moment to look at them. They're near almost without fail at your elevator bank. Elevators, I love elevators and I hate elevators. Never use an elevator in an emergency situation. No reputable security person anywhere will say, oh yeah, that's a good idea to use the elevator in an emergency. Elevators are notorious for having their own minds. So I always say, that's why you want to know where those stairs are. That's why you want to know what your plan is. You've got, and then the other thing is, people get that part. When there's an emergency, they want to save themselves. What they don't get is the drilling with the saving themselves. They kind of think, well, no, I intellectually know what I'm supposed to do. And lizard brain, that's where it comes back. We have lizard brain. We will do what we did before. So do it a couple times. Go out. Right. And just walk. You don't need to run. You don't need to act like anything exciting is happening. Nobody needs to know you're doing it. As a matter of fact, although it might be kind of cool if someone says, hey, what are you doing? You're like, hey, I'm doing my drill. I'm doing my quarterly drill. Whatever, that is what you do. So think about it. Your safe refuge area. Who are you calling? What would you do? All you have to think is, what would you do? Once you start thinking about it, your brain will fill in the rest. You'll get interested. You'll get about what's happening with safety, and boom, then you'll have that. It's like a superpower. It's a hidden superpower. It doesn't come out. You're not dude, with the extinguisher, putting out the candles on the birthday cake. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about the uber safety person. We're talking about a person who is looking at themselves, who is paying attention to what's around them, and who, if they see something, they need to say something. And that's very important because people think about it in a law enforcement sense. But how many people step over spilled drinks or or water that doesn't quite look right? They don't say anything, or, a machine that doesn't, okay, that doesn't sound right. Hey, find a security guard or a concierge or somebody and say, hey, I just noticed this over here. You might want to take care of it. That's our standard of care, because once we're aware of it, we must take care of it.
All right, let's ask about, you were talking about technology and how much technology we have available to us today. What kind of innovative solutions are you seeing in high-rise or apartment dwelling safety that excite you?
Well, not a lot. Quite frankly, I wish there were more. When as a manager, I would look at systems and I'd be evaluating them, and inevitably, because of my background, I would always go back to the fire life safety. Like, okay, what's your component? How am I notifying my people? How do they get, how does it get delivered to them? How do I notify them? How do they let me know they're safe? So these are systems. There are all kinds of software as service that provide different ways. They have beacons. High-end buildings will also use, if they have an app. There's some larger property management companies, real estate companies, that are also rolling it out on like portfolio basis for the larger residential apartments. The money that was recently released over the last 4 years for the infrastructure bill has really invigorated a lot of residential construction, because people want to get on the deal. What I'm not seeing, I'm seeing the initial adherence to life safety protocols to get that C of O. What I'm not seeing is the follow through by management to make sure that your ever changing roster of tenants are trained and know what to do in an emergency. In the city of Los Angeles, if you live or work in a high-rise building, that means a building over 75 feet, you must be trained in fire life safety protocols within 14 days of either coming to live in the building or coming to work in the building. Honestly, that does not happen. And we property managers would struggle with that. Another reason why I took up the banner. I look at it a little differently, and I think about how I can motivate people to be safe rather than to scare them into being safe.
So let's switch some gears again here. Let's talk about somebody who's moving into a high-rise building or an apartment building. What kind of questions should people be asking before moving into a high-rise building?
We don't ask enough questions. We ask, okay, where's the swimming pool? Where's the trash? Blah, blah, blah. A few things. Ask how often they test their emergency systems, because if it's a high-rise building, now I'm not talking about the little squats and the dingbats. If they're under 75 feet, they do not have to do this. If they're over, I'm talking high-rise, they are mandated to do these things. And if they don't, if you live in a jurisdiction where they don't mandate it, they should be doing it anyway. And you want to know, because once you start asking those questions, that manager is going to be like, I guess I better check on when I do my next test. So because nobody asks in the residential world, even in office, they don't come to me and go, Adele, hey, when's the annual power down? Unless they're very sophisticated, they've got a lot of equipment and they prepare for it, right? So that's the first thing you want to know. How often do you test your systems? You want to know who's on duty at night and who's the emergency contact and what the emergency evacuation procedures are. If it's a building or a building manager and a management company worth salt, it will have these things, even if it's rudimentary. And that will be okay if it's rudimentary. In a jurisdiction like New York or Los Angeles, you have to have floor plans, you have to have a written plan, you have to have assigned staff members. That's the reality. It's tough. People are running buildings with one manager instead of, they don't have maybe a big staff like an office building does. They don't have dedicated engineering staff that helps the fire department if there is an issue with any equipment. So there are basic differences, which means you really have to be more in tune with your safety if you're in a high-rise apartment building than if you're anywhere else, because it's more dangerous. People are cooking. People are lighting candles. I do not recommend get a candle warmer, get the reed sticks. And definitely do no open flames in an apartment building or a commercial building, even if it's not high rise, none. So minimize the flame. Make sure that you're checking those cords. And if you're in cold weather locations, watch your heaters. Make sure that you have tipping, and the tipping technology so that you don't set things on fire. It is heartbreaking to hear every holiday season a family has lost their home and their gifts and everything because you have your big tree and you got I remember because, okay, I almost set my house on fire like twice when I was 5. And once was the old nylon robes on the heater next to the tree and the gifts. Mm-hmm. We were lucky. I've seen far too many news stories where families aren't.
So, Adele, what about renters in apartment buildings? What are those most important safety features that they should be looking for?
You want to make sure that you're sprinklered if you can. Obviously, legacy buildings might not have sprinklers. Sprinklers are your after smoke alarms. They're your biggest protector. They're going to protect that's why we're not going to you don't see many fires in sprinklered buildings. You want to make sure that you're going to ask those same questions. What kind of, how often do we test? How often do we test? Who are the night people? Where is our safe refuge area? How do I let you know I'm okay? Because the manager is going to be frantically trying to account for all of the residents. So that's one reason that it's so difficult. You have to make these plans to tell people to tell you, because inevitably when I have drills in residential buildings, what happens? We tell them to go to the safe refuge area to check in. Well, let's see. Oh, woo, they got let me go get a frappe right now. Because, why do I need to do that? Because it's your home. It's a different thought. In work, you're like, what do I do? My boss needs to tell me what to do. You're at home. That's you and your family. So you need to make sure, you need to let them know you're okay, which is why you want to let anybody who house sits for you know what to do so they can be okay. So think about it. How many thousands of people right now are in apartments on Airbnbs or stays, and the landlord or the manager has no idea those people are in there, and those people have no idea what to do in an emergency?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's ask about families with children or the elderly or those who have pets. How can they best prepare for emergencies in a high-rise environment?
Well, essentially, if you're the elderly or those that need help, they need assistance, the manager, you have to let your manager know you need assistance. In a resident, they will try to get somebody. Again, they're going to be short of staff. So you might, hey, community, reach out to your neighbors and find somebody you like, so and let them know, ask them, will you assist me in an emergency? Now, basic safety is when there's an emergency, we want the able-bodied to leave first because they're able to do it. Just like the concept on the airplane where you put your mask on first because you can't help your child or anybody else if you are compromised. So right. It's the same thing with people who need assistance. We want them to be the last people that go to the stairwell and then go inside of the stairwell and they wait for everyone else to exit, and then they can take their time. If they need assistance, that's when the helper comes in. And the manager needs to know, but that person, and we can ask the manager to help source someone, or the manager knows, hey, blah, 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 in 14B needs assistance. They're up there to tell the fire personnel, and they will go up and collect them. Same idea. They kind of wait. They wait in the stairwell. Remember, rated stairwells. We build buildings for safety. Now, some better than others, but if it's a high-rise building, it should have some standards, and your stairwells are going to be your safe place. What I want to remind everyone in every situation is a stairwell's good. A safe stairwell is better. If it's not safe, I don't want you going in it.
Okay, last question. What is the first thing that comes to your mind that people overlook the most in terms of safety in their apartment or high-rise dwelling?
It's typically not knowing what to do, not having a plan, and knowing what to do is a plan. That is absolutely the first thing they don't know. We always get like one or two people, they're the mavens that, kind of they know everything. It's like you ask them a question, they know all the answers. And I love them because I want to show other people that you can be into this. But I want to hear from the people that are that aren't sure. I want to ask them, what is it? How, what do you think about this? What are you going to do? What's, hey, and also I want to correct any misconceptions you have from any popular film or television where they do a horrible job of depicting safety people. I've been in the room with LAPD media officers, and I said, hey, Hollywood is just right over there. Do you guys ever talk to them about like actually writing into the scripts how things really go down? I mean, 911's a great show, but it's sometimes I'm like, and I find myself yelling at the television frequently, that's not what you do. It's very pretty.
Well, thank you so much, Adele, for all your knowledge. It's vast and we barely even touched the surface of it. But I think awareness is just really critical. People just don't think about this in their high rise or their apartment living circumstances.
Absolutely. And it goes with you everywhere. So no
Yeah,
matter,
absolutely.
we are in different places, we move around, we travel, we're on vacation, whatnot. You could be in an Airbnb. Hey, you ask those questions. So what do I do if there's an emergency? Because it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Adele, for your expertise. Is there any way that you would like people to reach out to you if they'd like more information of your expertise?
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, ProPer Associates. It's a mix of professional and personal. This is personal for me. This is a bit of a challenge, but I know with people like you out there, and I'm so happy to have found you, that we can do it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Adele. Take care and have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.